Hi everybody, it's Andrew from Collective Intelligence. Today I'm going to talk to you about a topic that's actually pretty exciting for me. When I talk to lots of amateur producers who aren't making music full time and they're juggling production with either being unemployed and trying to produce in order to get ahead and to get somewhere with their music, or they're employed but they are sort of caught in this turmoil of finding the right time to make music. And they feel like when they get home from work, they're drained from spending all their energy at work, and then they get home and the creativity is not there and they don't feel excited to make music. They just want to maybe sit down and chill, or they've got other tasks to do. Some people are juggling very complicated lives, such as, being a parent and trying to find the right time to, be a dad or a mum, as well as then keep their partner happy, spend time with their partner, keep their relationship alive, and then spend time on their hobby, which would be, I guess in this case, making music, but it applies to really anything that you're trying to juggle and do. So this is music related, but it can be applied to anywhere in your life. And I believe that as we go on this musical journey, a lot of us start at a young age, and typically at a young age. Not all of us have gotten really great systems in place. A lot of people who are into electronic music can be also part of the, the party scene, be spending a lot of their weekends out partying. So I want to talk about how I've found my way through that territory, and it is a very personal thing, so I'm going to speak to you from my personal experience, and hopefully maybe some of that advice will be something that you can apply to your life, because I feel like recently I've broken through and managed to hit a very nice balance, and I've been getting very good results when I'm actually in the studio, and I'm all about wanting to share that. So if we rewind back to the beginning of my music journey, I feel like I hit the nail on the head right at the beginning without even realizing. But I was a young man around 24 years old when I started writing music. So that's about 5.5 years ago now. And I didn't have a huge group of friends. I wasn't an overly social guy. I am sort of more on the introverted sort of scale of things when it comes to where I get my energy. I find social situations draining, and I find alone time recharging. So I had a very small group of friends. I was living in Australia, which I'm still am now, but I was spending time with just New Zealanders who had moved over, all my friends from back home. And so I wasn't really going out much and doing anything. So when I started music production, my weekends were always completely free. So that was one random day during the week and Sunday. So I had sort of like a rotating roster. And I knew whenever I woke up in the morning on those days off, all I was doing was making music. There was nothing else on my agenda. So I would wake up and I'd watch tutorials, and I would soak up knowledge to the point where I was like, all right, now it's time to put some of this to use. And I'd get into the door and I'd work. And that's really how I got ahead, because I just didn't have anything else to do. I quit playing video games in order to push forward with learning this new skill. I had enough of the toxic environment of a lot of video games like Dota. That's predominantly what I played at that point in time. Played a lot of World of Warcraft and Age of Empires, which don't have such toxic communities, but World of Warcraft in particular sucks a lot of your time, and it's kind of very addictive. So, if we've suffered trauma, or if we're not very good at dealing with addictive tendencies, it's very easy to get sucked into that sort of thing. So pissed the video games off because they weren't doing anything for me. They were an escape, and I sort of wanted to start living in the real world a little bit more. And so I took on this project. And I had a very intimate moment with myself at some point where I had been quite frustrated by failing at high school and then failing at secondary education after that, and sort of wondering why I couldn't get it right, and looking at a lot of my musical mentors, such as Tool and bands like Deftones and System of a Down, a lot of that sort of era of metal that come from the United States. And I sort of thought to myself, why not me? You know, what's different between these guys who are expressing themselves and me? You know, I've got something to say. I've got something that I want to express. I've got something that I can give to the world. So what's the difference? And to me, the only difference seemed was that they had the skills. And how did they get the skills? They put in the work. And they may have started at a very young age and been fortunate enough to have those influences in their life that push them towards an instrument or something like this. And they have gotten to where they are through discipline and hard work. And discipline is the point of this video. Discipline is everything. So that was me on the beginning of my journey, somehow very disciplined. Even though it was very easy not to be distracted by a lot of things because I didn't have a very intense social life. So then that leads me to the transitionary phase where I sort of moved away from my friends in New Zealand and kind of set out on my own, trying to kind of find a more positive environment for myself, finding that very quickly, and then being in such a good headspace that I found the love of my life, and fell in love and then chased my love around the world, which took me away from music, but then eventually brought me back to Australia, where I really felt like I had lost a bit of time falling in love. No disrespect to my partner, but I could have been certainly more focused in that period of time. But that situation brought me so much more. She brought me the ability to be myself more happily and be silly and fun and all of the things that I sort of wasn't when I was so serious and upset about how my life had kind of unfolded and wanted to turn it around. And because I had started turning it around, I was more positive, and then I attracted the next piece of the puzzle, so to speak. And we've been encouraging each other and growing together. And she completely understands that I'm on a pretty intense mission to express myself here, and she's also on a mission herself. And that's important as well, to have a partner who really does support and understand what you're trying to achieve and do, and believe in you, because she really does believe in me, and I believe in her. So fair bit of sort of fluff before getting to the meat of the story, and hopefully this is somewhat interesting to you, even if you've never seen any of my videos before. So got back to Melbourne with my partner. We're living in a place, and she, due to visa constraints, couldn't work, so I needed to earn a living for us. And so I went back into work and ended up working myself into a ball of frustration, because I wanted to be here to work on my music, to work on my YouTube channel, to make things happen for myself. And I found myself in a 9-to-5 grind that was draining the life out of me, and I couldn't spend the time that I needed on music production. So what we did is we saved up a lot of money, and we got to the point where I quit my job sort of rather explosively, right? I got to the point where my partner said something to me at one point. She said, how are you going to get time off for Christmas? And this was like 6 months in the future, right? And I said, What do you mean time off in 6 months in the future? I don't want to be working in 6 months in the future, so I wouldn't need to, like, you think that I'm going to be working, and I think that I'm not going to be working, so we don't see eye to eye with where this is going. And she very quickly saw that I was really sort of losing it over having to spend so much time at work, where I really felt like what I needed to be doing was sort of building my skill set so that I could become the musician that I want to be. So, quit the job, unemployed, and all the time in the world. And you would think, great, fantastic, Andrew can really become who he needs to be because now he's got all the time in this world. And it's true, I did manage to get a significant amount of things done, and I really moved everything forward, but I encountered a whole set of other problems that I had never thought of. And when I was young, I was this very sort of naive young man. I used to think that if we didn't have to work, that we would be free and that we would be able to spend our time pursuing our goals and dreams. And whilst I don't disagree that that's true to some extent, what I really stress is that when you don't have that external structure around yourself, and if you're not raised to be extremely disciplined and a go-getter, then you end up wasting a hell of a lot of time. And also, when you're not within that structure system with external pressure upon you, time doesn't exist, and you're sort of in a state of, you know, you've got your foot just on the gas, but you're not pushing it, right? You're not running at your goal or your dream because you don't feel like time is ticking. And time is ticking. So amongst the Psytrance community, I know for sure that there's plenty of people that are very anti-establishment and very anti-modern, sort of what they call modern constructs of things like time and money and et cetera, et cetera. And whilst I can understand their way of thinking because I used to think like that, you do come full circle at some point and realize, okay, the system exists. I am part of it, whether I like it or not. And if I constantly struggle against this system, it's going to wear me down and it's going to destroy me and it's going to make me not the person that I need to be. And ultimately what needs to happen is I need to take ultimate responsibility for myself and the outcome of my productivity, because I want to be my own boss. And I can be my own boss when I'm working for somebody else. So this problem exists where we have a job, and if we have the wrong attitude, we make that job an enemy to our artistic expression, an enemy to us becoming the whatever our future vision is of ourselves. And I find it, you know, a little bit funny now when I hear people saying like, how can I make this happen when I have to go to work and it drains all my energy and blah, blah, blah. And I agree and I sympathize with people. I agree and sympathize with people who are juggling a family and all of these things. So everybody has a very, very different, you know, scenario in their life. And my insistence is, sure, you might have plenty of obstacles in front of you. And you've got all sorts of excuses for why you're not achieving your dream. But the person who understands this is not going to make those excuses. The person who understands that work is the only way, and it's some kind of sick irony to use work will set you free, because that sentence has been very misused in the 1940s, but work will set you free. It will allow your dreams to come true when you pursue them. I never dreamed of having almost 20,000 subscribers. I never dreamed of being able to actually have the appropriate network in which to share my music. Like I said, I was a shut-in young man who didn't have many friends, and definitely no friends in privileged sort of positions. And my life is completely different now. And I'm starting to see that this world is opening up to me, and that's because I've worked very hard towards what I want, and I've had to make sacrifice. So if you're not willing to sacrifice things like your social life, you're never going to get off a dance floor in order to make this happen. If you're not willing to sacrifice going out with the boys and fooling around occasionally, then you're never going to make this happen. You need to realize that you have to become the militant leader of your personal time. And you can't let people come in and take your time, because everybody's going to take a piece of your time. People, and especially people that aren't pursuing their own similar dreams and aspirations, they're all looking to escape together, and they're going to try and suck you into that, right? So I'm looking at it from a very sort of hardcore approach. I'm a bit of a hardliner in general, so forgive me for that. But people are going to suck your time, and you need to take control over that, and you need to lead your time, and you need to rule your life. So discipline and sacrifice are key, and I'm going to tell you how I managed to bring that together. Because it wasn't until I was hitting sort of rock bottom with having all the time in the world, but none of the inspiration and none of the desire to actually make it happen, that I turned and sort of said to my partner, mainly due to financial constraints as well, that I wasn't able to buy the things that I needed to actually take a significant step forward. And I don't propose to people that buying equipment and gear is going to fix their problem. But I had identified that my computer was holding me back because I couldn't run massive projects. And now this is not a very big project yet. But even getting up to 45 channels of live instruments and stuff, this is I've only worked on this for about 3 or 4 hours. But even getting to this point, it was starting to crackle and pop, right? This computer that I've got now, that I managed to get, can handle anything that I throw at it. It hasn't failed me yet. So going on little tangents here and here, so I'll try and keep it to the point. So I identified that I could get equipment that was going to further my goals. And I also identified that I felt like my studio monitoring was no longer sufficient for me to get the level of production that I wanted to achieve, and that I wanted just higher resolution sound so that I could really understand compression and EQ better, because I could really clearly hear what I was doing and trust the speakers that they were going to translate onto other systems. So there, and I had been I'd been producing for 5 years before I'd made these decisions, or 4.5 years before I'd made these decisions. So I felt like I had committed enough of myself to learn that these investments were not going to be wastes of time. But I couldn't afford them because I was unemployed. And I just couldn't get the money together in order to really, spend what I needed to get a good computer and to get some good studio monitors. And I really wanted to get back to a desktop computer. So, I knew what I needed and I couldn't make it happen. And that pushed me. And I also realized I had been listening and watching a lot of Jordan Peterson, because he comes along with the old-fashioned value, and everybody thinks that that's insanity in this day and age. And actually, it's a breath of fresh air and a breath of sanity, because he encourages people to take personal responsibility. And if we're just a victim of a system, if I just continued to live my life feeling like I was a victim of this society that we've built around us, I would always be blaming the system and be inactive. And I see that amongst a lot of people, and I think that that's very foolish, because you can take control of your life. You're in control. You can do it. You are not a victim of circumstance. You are not a victim of existence. I encourage everybody to get out there and grab life by the balls. So what does that mean? That means that you need to come up with some way for you to become productive. And I believe in scheduling. I think scheduling is extremely important. So when I was learning, my days off were dedicated to music production. I wasn't doing anything else. I didn't have anything else to do. Now, what I'm doing is my days off are music production again. And during the week, I don't feel frustrated about my job taking all my time because I know on the weekend I'm going to get it done. And I don't sit down here, and I do have days where I sit down here and I find that my creative output doesn't just flow the way that it does on certain circumstances. I get it. You don't always have the energy to, produce. But what you need to realize is you can push through that. You can push through writer's block. You can push through all of these things, but you need to open up the door, you need to sit down, and you need to start doing something so that you can allow it to explode and happen. And then when you're having those thoughts of, oh shit, like, nah, I'm really not feeling this, you need to shut up that inner dialogue and just keep messing around, because it doesn't matter, right? What does it matter if you're not feeling it? What are you committed to? You know, you think that the next track you write is going to be, you know, the Beatport top 10, like, cool if it is, but like, what are your expectations? What are you expecting? You can't always sit down and shit gold. And if you do always sit down and shit gold, wicked. But you better work hard and make the most of it, because everybody else would kill for that. So I militantly defend my spare time now. I won't let anybody take it, because I know that when I'm spending that time, I'm fulfilling internally what I need in order to be happy in life. And if I don't spend that time in the studio producing, I'm not a happy boy. Now, I need to balance that with spending time with my partner and showing her that I love her and care for her. I need to make more of an effort to stay in touch with family and do all of these other things. You know, it's complicated. But what you need to understand is, if you actually became a very organized person and you ate properly and you exercised and you did all of these things, then you would be at a more constant state of energy. So you wouldn't be coming home from work and being exhausted because you've eaten properly, because you've gone to the gym and you've done a workout routine. You need to realize that making music and making something of yourself like this is not just simply one aspect. This is a whole self-improvement, life improvement program. And when you set out on it and you realize that discipline is the key to everything, you become more disciplined in every way. You get better at what you're going to eat. You get better at what you're going to do in terms of your sleep and sleep cycle. You start making the right decisions about how to look after yourself as a future version of yourself. And I really insist that it's not as difficult as what you make it out to be. If you properly scheduled your time, you could have enough time to spend quality time with your kids. And then once they're in bed, spend quality time with your partner. And then when you find and schedule the time, even if it's an hour, sit down in the studio and work on something, right? Even if you set the intention just to do a tiny little bit a week, you need to commit to that, and then you need to not let other people steal your time, unless, of course, it's absolutely necessary. So they're a collection of my thoughts on this. Now, I know that a lot of people do suffer intense hardship, family like life is difficult, etc., etc. But you can claim responsibility for everything that's happening in your life. And when you claim responsibility and you start to own it and you start to get on top of it and you don't avoid things and you confront problems as they come up and you deal with them appropriately like a mature woman or man, life will open up to you. Life will open up to you. And there's nothing bad about becoming more disciplined and more structured as a human being. We need discipline and structure around us to operate within society. If we had no discipline, we would be animals, right? If we had no structure, we would be animals. So people that are against discipline and structure, if they want to slip back into being an animal, you know, that's okay. But the reason why we built built these structures is to become civilized. Too much order is not good. Too much chaos is not good. You need to find that happy medium in between, because there are, people that live out on the extreme and they're consumed by that extreme. You really need to find that center. And I hope that you can find it for yourself. You do have the time. Change your diet if you don't have the energy once you get home from work, because, I work hard days, carrying boxes around at work, doing all sorts of physical shit as well as boring and mundane shit. And I come home and I'm still beaming with energy. I just got home from work now and I'm recording this video. So, lead by example. Make it happen. I believe in you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed this rambling. Hopefully it's useful to somebody out there. See you in another video.